Live.
Yes. Welcome in. It's the Tim McKernan Show podcast. My name is Timothy Michael McKernan. I'm joined by Jackson Burkett, who is fresh off of his debut, working with me and Scott Rizzuto, DBA Riz, from the Riz Show and 105.7 The Point for the Spread Zone Gambling podcast, where all we did was talk tournament. And Jackson was alarmed to talk tournament and have me not do this voice.
It felt incomplete. You know, it's like when you get one sneeze, two sneezes, you can feel that third one coming,
sure.
and you don't get it off. It's like it's the radio equivalent to blue balls.
Well, we were talking tournament. And that will debut for those of you who are listening live or listening on March 18th, 2025, as we record this podcast on March 19th, I believe, on both the TMA STL channel on YouTube and on the Riz Show channel, along with both shows' podcast feeds and I would imagine 101 ESPN's. As well. It is QFTA, a podcast that always welcomes you to email in your questions, your comments, your erotic stories. T. McKernan at InsideSTL.com. I got it. This is rhetorical. I doubt you use Outlook. Do you use Outlook?
Uh-huh.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Have you been having issues with Outlook?
I kind of always have issues with Outlook.
Really? This is just like the last 3 weeks, and I'm like, I'm not in my email right now to get, and I'm like, I know it's not going to work. It takes like 20 minutes for it to warm up.
Yeah.
It's a motherfucker.
Are you on the right Wi-Fi? We were just on a different Wi-Fi.
No, this is at home. This can be.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, this is a mess. So I'm going to try to get in there right now. But because I got a bunch saved up.
It's always finicky with that authenticator.
That's what I'm authenticating as we speak.
Yeah.
So anyway, you can always email in T. McKernan at InsideSTL.com. Jackson Bennett Burkett is getting ready for the NCAA tournament. And, hey, this is it. You are going to be live on this YouTube channel, youtube.com/TMASTL, at 6:30 Central Time, Thursday night for Missouri and Drake. I love your optimism. I love your commitment to partaking in the program. However, just like that yellow diaper that is a mere 3 feet away from you, 4 feet away from you, I would advise you against
the live stream?
Yeah.
I'm with. I mean, I'm not like committed to it fully.
No, I'm glad you're doing it.
Right.
And if I'm not in Wichita at the game, even if I am, I might have it up.
Yeah.
I'll be watching. But Missouri losing in the NCAA tournament to Drake and the hundreds of people who will be watching you go through it.
Yeah.
And then saying just awful things. Most of the time you're on the fourth level of the 10 levels that Doug Vaughn has gotten through to get to his nirvana. Most of the time you're in the nirvana.
Yeah.
I worry that you'll be an exposed nerve. You'll be sitting there by yourself while they dance on your grave and the Tigers' grave.
Yeah, if I hadn't done this before, I would totally agree and probably fade it. But like losing to Princeton was worse and would be worse.
The slow death. It was a game that was never really in question. What if Drake fires a buzzer beater to end the season? Picture that moment.
Oh, God.
Picture the Larson Woods wacko watching and calling you. Was he calling you the Antichrist?
He called me the Antichrist, that's right. That would be like a throat punch, and then there would be people laughing at me.
The St. Charles hermaphrodite who says you sleep with a Frank Haith body pillow.
That's right, yeah. And he's
much less the 101 ESPN listeners from the 618, probably a lot of Missouri State.
Yeah.
They will be in full celebratory mode and watching your downfall. This will be the schadenfreude capital of the internet.
Yeah. Yeah, and some would say, like, well, are you turned down, like, if you don't do it, like, sponsorship opportunities? No, in fact, not making a cent.
Not a dollar. That's why I'm saying, if I do a juice squeeze analytic.
The equation is very lopsided.
Oh, cute. I get it.
I know. There's a real
I get it.
ban on that word. It's a lopsided equation. However, I did it before, and I did enjoy it. Like, the Utah State game, it was fun, because people in there, like, there was a lot, mostly Tiger fans who were fired up with me and loving it, asking questions, talking about the game. So there was some fun aspects to it, but the The problem is like committing to it for the whole tournament. Like if they are to go on a run, like, well, if I want to watch with my friends, and I don't want to bring them onto the stream. So we'll see. My plan is
I'd love to
Thursday.
see Sweet Kai on the stream, though.
The plan is for at least Thursday's game to be live. The plan is for Thursday.
So when they take on Texas Tech or UNC Wilmington on Saturday, and Jackson and I think that might be an evening game.
Yeah, I hope. That's more of a hope thing. Just because both Missouri...
We go back and look at it. Missouri and Texas Tech are playing night games on Thursday. Yeah. But then as we were talking about this before we went live with the podcast, I said, man, I remember when I was in Greensboro and Missouri played Duke, 2001, when they beat Jimmy Herrick's Georgia Bulldogs on a last-second Clarence Gilbert buzzer beater. That was a night game, but they had the first game on Saturday against Duke.
Yeah. I would just
now that's the Duke brand name, and they always like to have a brand name for that first window.
For
I understand that Duke is in the Friday-Sunday slot this year, so it won't be Duke this year. But I don't know. I think Missouri Texas Tech could very well be a little. Hey, it's nighttime. Let's throw these two together. Neither one big brands.
Yeah, so I'm kind of hoping for. Kind of rather have the day to watch.
Why do you hate me having to spend another night in Wichita Hotel?
It's selfish, but like when I watch the NCAA tournament, like I'm kind of glad Missouri is the first on Thursday, because if they win Thursday, my enjoyment watching on Friday increases tenfold, because I know my team's already moved on.
Could not agree more with you.
Yeah, like it's like so much more fun to watch.
Could not agree more with you.
After like my anxiety's done. And then Saturday, if they are, so that way if they win then Sunday, enjoyment through the roof,
Brad says, I was in the last live stream, 2023, Utah State and/or Princeton. It really wasn't that bad, just got guys shooting the shit with Jackson. Brad, that's probably a right-on assessment. Well, the world has changed a little bit for this program since March of 2023. And whereas you had to have like a Chester Copperpot map to find our show back in 2023, now we're out there for all friends to gather around and hate the program. Not just the TMA people who say it was better with this version, and then it was better with this version, and then it was better with this version, all the way back to, man, the show won't be the same without Martin, but now Martin's back, and it's still not the whole thing that I have lived through for 21 years. Now you have friends who didn't even know the program existed and hate it.
Yeah, a lot from Festus.
And 618, and they will be watching, and they will be with soft cows if Drake has an 8-point lead at the half, and it's like 28-20.
Yeah. Price of the brick has certainly gone up in that regard. So I would agree that the world has changed, and there would be a lot more Schadenfreude out there. Mm-hmm. But I think I can power through it. Well, like I said,
hey, listen, I'm glad you're doing it. All I want you to do is just look at that yellow diaper.
It's true.
This is your yellow diaper of 2025.
I did a good job when they beat Utah State of like not going overboard. Same with Princeton, like not freaking out too much, knowing that I'm on stream. And honestly, for my mental health, it's.
But
better.
I've got gifs of you like fist pumping and hands and head.
Yeah, but
heads and hands, nurse, fists and holes.
Fists and holes. I did not ride myself. Actually, I remember during, I think it was the Utah State game, someone rang my doorbell, and I lived at this place going on a year, and no one ever rang my doorbell before, and I got really scared.
That it was like a listener?
Well, yeah, like someone, like they do this thing on streams called swatting people, where they like send a SWAT team to people. It's a nightmare. So that's why I thought I was so scared. Then I came back on. Everyone was like, they just rang your doorbell. Why are you freaking out? I was like, sorry. So, like Thursday, the plan is to stream. Saturday, TBD. And then they have to beat Drake. They have to beat Drake.
Jackson, I'm glad I got into my email, and I'm very glad because I remember the basic premise of the question, but I couldn't remember the exact email. And when I got it, I was like, ooh, I can't wait to discuss this thing.
All right.
QFTA, titled Local Sharing 24/7, WTF, please don't use my name.
Okay.
Hi, Tim and Jackson. Please don't use my name because I have family members who listen and do this. But what the fuck happened to society where now we share our locations 24/7 with each other? I get a parent having their younger child's cell phone location or maybe knowing the location of an elderly parent who still drives. But grown-ass adults knowing where their friend's husband or wife is all day is fucking psychotic. It's creepy, weird, and a huge invasion of privacy. What has happened to us? Thoughts? And that is from I'd Like to Remain Anonymous.
Fair. I don't share my location with anybody.
Now, I have to tell you, when I first read this, and sometimes when I get these, I glance at them and then I save them in my QFTA file. I actually thought this was about social media. Look, here I am.
Oh.
And so as I'm reading it, I'm like, oh, I just realized that what I thought we were going to be talking about was a totally different thing. So we're talking about, I guess you have your location on.
Right. Or you can share it with people.
Now, I do that in part because of losing my phone.
Sure. Yeah.
That's honestly like what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
I also, I guess, know that I don't have, which I guess screams to how exciting my life is, but I have nothing to hide. So it's just like, and also 99% of the time I'm in my basement.
Right. It's a pretty consistent locale. Yeah, I don't share it with none of my buddies. If asked, I have a couple buddies who have it just like a joke with their friends. I don't know if I know anybody who shares it with their significant other that doesn't have kids, where it'd be like a situation where they like needs to know where their kids are. And so
somebody was funking around.
That's a prime. That's and then people turn the location services off, and that raises a big question mark. What's going on? Yeah, I don't need to be dealing with any of that, nor do I need to be posting on social media everywhere I go, and I know people like that.
So, okay, I'm more interested in that, even though, in fairness to the emailer, that's not what they asked. But that's what I thought the email was, which is why I read
Let's
it first.
Let's take it there.
So I am really curious about that.
Yeah.
So, well, now, Starter Packs, we all know who Starter Packs is. He was in here. And one of his posts yesterday...
I'm going to pull it up, too.
Oh, it was just outstanding. I don't know if it's still up. Let me see.
It's still on airplane mode from Spread Zone.
Let's see. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It was a poll. It's been taken down since, just because it's expired. But the question was, what is the best competition in all the world? And it was something like Tour de France, Boston Marathon, NCAA tournament. St. Louis families on social media trying to prove their spring break trip is the best. I was like, God.
Right. And if you're domestic, you're already out of the competition. You got to go to.
Right. I guess I'll share my pictures from Wichita if we go.
Blessed.
Now, I am so, but I'll have the memories pop up on Facebook, and I'm like, God, this wasn't that long ago. And I want to know what trauma I experienced in between June of 2021, when I was just like happily playing, and we were working together, albeit I was down in Jupiter, and I would just be out with my family, and I just share pictures of being out with my family. Why? I don't know, because I was happy, I guess, and that was like the way I would express it. I do know, I guess, I maybe the best thing, but I don't really care either way, is to have like the family social media account.
Yeah.
And then I have like the listener one, which would be the Gift Depot and the retweet.
Like a private one, the public one. Yeah. Yeah, but
I would under no circumstances, none, now. So I would like a psychoanalysis. Why as recently as June 2021, it's like, oh yeah, here's me and my older son on the golf course. And there's, a gator 3 feet from us. And I just like, I like, I like that person, which was less than 4 years ago, is not who this person is now. There's not a chance in hell that I would do that. Mm-hmm. So last night, me and my older son went to Family Golf, which is, if I'm not in my basement, I'm at Family Golf. Right. And God, there are a lot of TMA listeners at Family Golf, which is wonderful. It's always nice to talk it over with the people. Yeah, and a good sponsor. And we're driving past the course, and my 7-year-old son goes, hey, after we get on hitting balls, can we play 3 or 4 holes? I go, sure. Anytime he wants to play, I'm in. That's just the way it is. I said, sure. He goes, maybe we can play all night. I'm like, sounds good. Yeah. I'm in. And so then it's not as great as Jupiter, as you can imagine, in the golden hour, but still, you're out there with your son. Or as the case may be for some of you, you're out there with your daughter, and it's just it is my peak happiness. Mm-hmm. The 2021 me would have taken that, because I did take pictures, but I shared them with my wife and my wife's parents and my parents. But the 2021 me would have put that on my Instagram. Mm-hmm. And I guess this speaks to what I thought the question was, which is why people are always sharing all of their stuff. Now, I want to make sure I include this before I go to you with your theory on this. For you and the people who are, you're now 27-year-old gentlemen, but who are in their 20s, that's all you've known. And I think that's an important disclaimer. For my peers, I'll be honest with you, I think it's insecurity. But when I was posting this shit 4 years ago, I wasn't like, I hope people know I am in Jupiter.
Right.
I was just happy.
Yeah. Almost like a time capsule. It's a place to always see this
Except
picture.
now when I see it pop up, it brings both me and my wife like into like sadness because we're like, God, why are we there?
Yeah.
You know, honestly, and it wasn't done that way because in the moment you're not thinking, oh, this is going to pop up in a few years.
No.
So let's tend to the 20-somethings, your peers who are doing it, and let's tend to those in their 40s who did not grow up with this and why they're doing it. What's going on?
I wish I could tell you, like, give you like a full insight on the 20. I have people I know anywhere they go, Instagram story of it, multiple pictures of themselves, mirror selfies at the gym. That's the one I'll never understand. But
now, see, here's where I immediately go on that. It's to show people that you're working out.
Yes, yeah, and some can hide it under the guise of like, if I post every day and I stop, like it's like keeping me accountable. Baloney, honestly.
Now you're going after Ella Reese a little bit,
and she's always welcome on the pod. Standing invite. But yeah, I think for the most part, it's like, yeah, here I am at the gym, and so exactly what you said, showing off, and that's why I think all of social media in a way is.
I know
it's just kind of showing off or showing a life that seems better than it is, even if that isn't the case.
Last, I guess we didn't do a QFTA last week. But 2 weeks ago, the last one we did, Scott Galloway, I believe, is the gentleman. I had some people reach out to me about that book recommendation. I love it. I might actually listen to it again. I think that's. Is that his name? Do you know who I'm talking about? I know
he was on the phone in White Lotus.
He was indeed, Jackson. The Algebra of Wealth, a simple formula for financial security. If my kids were old enough, I would absolutely have them listen to it. You are in the sweet spot for it. Right. Although I think you are way more advanced on that in comparison to me. You can't be less advanced than where I was at 27 years old. It's alarming. But he calls it wealth porn. And it's similar to porn. It's not real.
Right.
But people, for whatever reason, and I wonder what that's about. I guess for me, everything either goes back to insecurity, religion, or sex. I feel like everything can be traced back.
Yeah. One could say insecurity is like the umbrella over it all.
I actually was about to say insecurity might be the umbrella. But that it's wealth porn, people showing that they're doing better than they are. But then again, because like the people I know who actually have real money, they're not doing that.
Sure.
The people who kind of don't, but, might be leveraged.
Sure.
Those are the ones who are doing it. And so then what happens subconsciously is people feel like they've fallen behind because all they see on social media is everybody flashing some kind of incredible restaurant or vacation or whatever the hell might be.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think I'm so... because it involves my family. I think that's the main reason. So hyper conscious of that. But I don't know what happened in between 2021 and even like last year. There's no way I would have done it. Where I was just like, oh yeah, here it is, and I'm just like, God, I can't believe. Like if that was a decade ago, maybe, but that wasn't that long ago. Like what the fuck? But I know I wasn't like, look at me, I'm on the golf course. Look at me, I'm in South Florida. I just was happy. That is my euphoria down there. So I'm trying to psychoanalyze why I did it, why I don't do it now, why your generation does it, and I don't think it's a brag in your generation's case, not exclusively. I just think it's all you've grown up with, so it's all you know. And then why I do think it's a brag for my generation. And I don't have the answer to any of those 4 questions.
Yeah, I think in some parts of it, like if there's like a beautiful sunset and maybe you're in a really nice spot and you take a picture of it, it's like, well, this is kind of what Instagram is for, is to post pictures, and this is a cool picture that I took, and here it is. And it's maybe just as simple as that. I think for some 20-year-olds, I equate it to like a whiteboard in front of your dorm, like how everyone had a little whiteboard with like you write your name or where you're from on it. And to some people, like their Instagram is that whiteboard that they're showing off to the world. Here is a little bit about me. Here is what I am, and this is what I'm broadcasting to the world. So if you were to drop by, didn't know who I was, you could look through my Instagram and tell everything about me.
I'm workshopping this. So tip of the cap to the question. I apologize for not necessarily answering the question you asked, but I interpreted it one way, and then when I reread it, I realized it's not what you were asking. But if your account is private,
yeah,
my guess then is that it is not as what I would perceive, and maybe I'm incorrect, braggadocious.
Yeah, I think
you would agree with me on that.
No, I think you'd be off on that.
You think I'd be off on that?
Yeah. Oh, bragging to your friends is more important than bragging to some stranger.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Wow. I have to tell you, I really disagree with you on that, but I'm open to you changing my mind. What do you got?
Well, I think in the mind of someone who is posting that, and again, that might be a subconscious thing that they're doing it to brag, show off a life that's better than the one they actually lead. I don't think they would give a damn what, somebody they don't know, but a friend or someone they know. To get laid. Oftentimes, the most braggadocious are people in relationships.
To get laid.
Yeah, well, maybe, yes. But I think it's deeper than that. I think while I agree with you, insecurity, religion, and sex probably make up almost all of the world's comings and goings and comings. I think bragging to people and I think that applies to people in their 20s and their 40s and their 50s and their 60s is more important than bragging to strangers.
You think there's 60-year-olds bragging on social media?
Yeah, probably.
About themselves, like maybe about their kids or grandkids.
I think there's some of that, and I think there's still some self-promoters or janky.
Really?
Yeah, I think that's I don't know anyone personally.
You're not following the 60-somethings?
Not too much.
But you did say you wanted to sleep with Lindy Ruff.
I ranked him high up on highest. I also ranked Rod the Bod Brindamore up there. But some about Lindy Ruff just, make you feel safe, much like Retief Goosen. You could just curl up by a fire, hang out, maybe watch Puck. Seems like a pretty good night. Yeah.
I was scrolling through the Twitter tweets. I have no idea why. I don't know because I got a TMASTL notification, and I saw. Which is going to leak because Jackson's pay.
Yeah, fuck yeah.
There is now a meme.
It was instant meme. It was like as soon as I saw it, I go, meme.
And part of your currency is we talk White Lotus on QFTA at the end.
Yes, at the end.
It's Walton Goggins, and it's the DeWallet inspector. This has been repeated by Kyle Reese. We got to get on TMA.
100%. 100%.
My face when Brad Thompson raves about Michaelis' ability to take the ball every fifth day. And it's the Walton Goggins reaction to...
Mouth wide open. To Sam Rockwell's monologue.
Sam Rockwell's monologue about becoming a ladyboy.
Yeah. Well, at least being fucked like one.
Thank you. That could be the title of the podcast. Let's see. Do y'all have a guess on the percentages of people taking Drake over Mizzou in brackets?
I never buy whenever they post that stuff. It's like I don't know, like ESPN will always do like this many people have in the brackets, and like that's just one site. I actually like the money.
I mean, you go to Action Network and get an idea on the bets.
That's where I don't care about brackets as much.
I think both with people who fill out brackets, and this includes me, and then certainly the people who do those NCAA tournament shows. But I mean, even like the podcasts that people feel like they have to pick upsets, and so the safe zone of upsets would be your 5, certainly 6 and 7s, where you can go, okay, I'm gonna take a chance, but I'm not risking my whole tournament because Missouri's not going deep anyway.
Right.
So I think that's the undercurrent of how many people, like Missouri's playing Drake, and I haven't watched a second of Drake basketball. I have no clue. And I also know, and this is why I'm high on Missouri, but maybe it's obvious that it could very well just be bias. It's my opinion, and you certainly watch Missouri basketball way more, number one, maybe way more, but number two, way more intently than I did. But then on a number of those losses at the end of the year, I'm just going, fuck. Like the Tennessee game, in which Tennessee, which is known as a defensive team, and they just went off from 3, and you just kind of go, okay, what are you going to do? If you run into that against Drake, you're going to go, what are you going to do?
Totally.
That they had that happen against Oklahoma, against Kentucky,
Yeah.
and for the final minute against Vanderbilt.
Truly.
And so if, on the other hand, if Caleb Grill has one of those games like he had against Mississippi State where they blew them off the floor, what was Mississippi State going to do? Chris Jans was talking about that going into their rematch in the SEC tournament. So it's one of those things that you might hit on it, but your process may be inaccurate, but you still win.
Right.
I'm just of the opinion that Missouri is undervalued. Yeah. Now, they could still lose to Drake because, again, it has presented the scenario. Or I could just be flat out fucking wrong. Sure. But I love where Missouri is in the NCAA tournament as far as their bracket. Yeah. I do. I realize it could get interesting if and when they would get past Drake, most likely Texas Tech, and then take your pick. I mean, right now it'd be St. John's. Yeah. Because then Florida's sitting there, and Florida, I would imagine, is going to be the pick by most. Florida or Duke, I guess. I think Duke could be reduced because some may have hesitation on flag.
Yeah, bro.
I think Auburn and some people are probably offloading with the recency bias of losing 3 of 4. Mm-hmm. So there actually probably is value in taking Auburn if you're filling out one of these pools. But with that all said, the deal with the NCAA tournament is whether you're super hot or your opponent's super hot or you're super cold or your opponent's super cold, it is absolutely the least optimal way to determine a champion. But at the same time, it's one of the most entertaining ways to determine a champion.
Yeah, I wouldn't change a thing about it. Yeah. If Caleb Grill gets hot like he did against Mississippi State, they have a good chance to beat any team in the country. That's what they did against Florida. Caleb Grill just got that hot, and they out-efforted Florida. And that's why I want to see more of Missouri this tournament is like that, like all-out effort. That's why when they were doing the shush thing, I was so on board with it because they didn't play scared. They played to win every single game, which means diving on the floor, getting long rebounds, getting every loose ball. If they do that, Caleb Grill catches a little heat from outside. Yeah, I think this could be special.
I mean, you'll have to watch the spread zone, but I don't know. Hey, and it's one of those things. I mean, hey, they're going to come after you harder because you're more out there,
and I welcome that.
But I'm on the record that this is the first time since the Blues in 2019 that I have felt this way about a team. Mm-hmm. And I remember saying to Doug in the old KFNS studios in Kirkwood before, it sounded so asinine, and it's tough to take yourself back there to remember how ridiculous it sounded. But before they started that series against the Jets, it was like in a commercial break, I said to Doug, I got to tell you, I think the Blues might win the Stanley Cup, which sounded like a joke.
Right.
Just like, I think Missouri might go to the Final Four because both teams have so much pad in the case of the Blues, but going into it still have so much PTSD from so many brutal beats. Yeah. Missouri and Blues fans, there might not be a lot of overlap in the Venn diagram, but they shared a lot in common pre-June 2019. Right. And so, yeah, it's the same thing. I remember being in Columbia with my photographer who was a big Tennessee fan, and Gary Pinkel scolding him for wearing his Tennessee hat in Pinkel's first year. It's a story that I've told quite a bit, and so amongst Missouri fans it's become famous because Pinkel didn't like the idea of somebody showing up to Columbia, Missouri wearing a Tennessee hat. Yeah. And Missouri was in the Big 12 at the time.
Right.
Now, to me, Missouri was basically in AAA, and Tennessee, 3 years removed from a national championship, was the big leagues and like the Yankees, right. So it didn't even cross my mind. And so when my photographer said, boy, Pinkel just told me to take my Tennessee hat off, and the whole team stared at the whole situation because I'm like, what's going on here? And then he walked up to me and said, hey, I'm trying to do something here, and I can't have these kids seeing you wearing another school's team hat around here when I'm trying to build something here. So do me a favor, take the hat off, and I'll go get you a Missouri hat. When you get back in the car, wear it all day long for all I care. But when you're here, if you want to wear a hat, I'd request that you don't wear another school's hat. And he goes, I'm telling you, this guy's going to get you to a conference championship. And I'm going, Missouri in a conference championship? You got to be fucking kidding me. 6 years later, they're the number one team in the country. Yep. So I realize how ridiculous it has to sound, but, But keep in mind, Missouri football and playing for the Big 12 championship, being number one in the country, sounded ridiculous. And Missouri being the SEC championship sounded ridiculous. And the Blues winning a Stanley Cup sounded ridiculous. The only thing that's kind of like a safe play up until the last couple of years is the Cardinals being good, and you can always lean on that.
Yeah.
So hey, and like I said, I could be completely off the mark, but I'm like, I don't think Missouri is getting. If it's a value situation, I think they're undervalued. But I could be completely off the mark because I'm still looking at this team as the team they were when they won in Gainesville, won in Starkville.
Late January, mid-February.
Right.
Yeah. On the heels of your Stanford or of your Gary Pinkel thing, that's actually a move Stanford Steve does when he goes to these schools on game day, is he'll go work out the day before in their facilities, and they'll wear like a Stanford t-shirt at Clemson, and they'll be like, Steve, all right, so they go get him a bunch of Clemson gear, and that's how he's like accrued a ton of college gear by wearing Stanford stuff into their shirt.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
That's a bad play. Jackson, if it's any comfort, you get older, you're less live or die with your team. You're always a fan. You can't nor should you quit them. You just bounce back quicker when we have a love, kids, etc. That's from Too Fat to Kayak.
Yeah, it makes sense. As you gain more responsibilities, you prioritize things differently. That's just a natural way of life.
I actually think it's a beautiful thing if you can, although it's very rare. I can't think of any of my friends who would be on the floor if their team didn't win at this point.
Right.
But 20 years ago, I was one of those guys.
Yeah.
That it's a beautiful thing that if you can keep that going without being on message boards. I want to make that, like if you can continue without all of a sudden you're a guy in your 40s on message boards, gossiping about,
possible coaches. Yeah.
Right.
I don't ever want to be that. I don't want to be that now. Definitely not when I'm 40. But yeah, I imagine as my life goes on, if I have kids and wife, priorities will change. But my love will always burn true.
For the black and gold.
Forever and always.
That's a beautiful sentiment. Let's see what I got here. All right, I got a call at 1:15. It's 12:44. This one is interesting. I don't remember it. It just was sent to my Hubbard email, and then I just forwarded it to my T. McKernan at InsideSTL.com. That's different than my Hotmail. I'm really diversified with my... What was the name of one of the podcasts? My fucking Hotmail won't work or something like that?
And I said that no one has said that in 20 years.
That's exactly right. My AOL won't work. My Yahoo won't work. Tim and Jackson, I thoroughly enjoy your glorious radio show and this here program.
Thank you.
This question is directed to our good boy, Jackson. You like that being called our good boy?
That fit. It's nice.
My wife, F43, and I, M43, have a son, M5, that the more I research either has ADHD or has all the symptoms of ADHD. He started daycare when he was about 2.5 years old. We soon found out that he was having some problems at school with emotional regulation. He would have frequent outbursts at home as well. We chalked up to typical toddler behavior. As he got older, the outbursts did slow down, but he still does have them. For the longest time, we wondered what we were doing that was wrong. We were getting down on ourselves, and I hate to read that, and I'll revisit that here momentarily. We were getting down on ourselves and unfortunately coming down on him as well. This made things quite a bit worse for him. This is when I began reading a little bit about ADHD and autism. At school, they were writing down each outburst. These included screaming, hitting, and kicking when he got overstimulated. And we were having to sign a form each day acknowledging that we were told of these outbursts. It was taking an emotional toll on him. Around this time, my wife had started the process of looking into an IEP. What does that stand for?
Individual Education Program.
Oh, okay. A few months ago, I started scaling back on punishment. I instead have simply talked to him about the emotions he feels. I've been diving deeper into the research of ADHD. The symptoms he has mirrors ADHD and less so the autism spectrum. He's had great responses to me just talking with him. I believe the lack of people just talking with him instead of telling him he's bad has hit his self-esteem. He has a ton of trust in me since I started this approach. At this point, we are not looking into medication. At what point did your parents realize you had ADHD? Did you have any trouble keeping friends when you were young? I worry about that for our son, as his roller coaster of emotions can be an exhausting ride. I appreciate you sharing your challenges with ADHD. It takes a lot of courage to open up and be that vulnerable in front of so many people. Prior to really diving into the emotional development delays that are common with ADHD, I am a little embarrassed to say that I was judgmental of the parents of kids that would act like our son sometimes does. I've now embraced his challenges as it's up to my wife and I to help him find coping mechanisms. Cheers, boys. Now you should go slap some balls around the golf course. Bye. That's from DJ Jazzy Jeff, Albert Pujols.
Great email.
I'm anxious to hear the answer to this.
So my situation was a little different than what I believe their child's is. Mine was less so like so ADHD and ADD are now like it's all kind of the same. This is the same thing. I was much more in the attention deficit. Like I am a pro daydreamer. I can like have something in my ear playing audio and not listen to one word of it and think about something else and
Are
totally
you thinking
be
about like Ella Reese and Abigail Mack?
Yeah, and they're
That's where you are.
Yeah.
When I'm giving like a take. I'll tell you another thing about Purdue High Point.
I mean, I've said it before, and it's not a shot at any of the guests that come on our program. I listen to Kelly Chase too, and that's not a shot at John Kelly or anybody that comes on the program.
Seems like it's anti-hockey just on the surface.
There are times where we'll have an interview on the show, and I won't hear. I mean, I have it in my ear and playing loudly in my ear. I won't hear a word that they say.
Wow.
Like not a single word. Like I don't know anything that they talked about. Couldn't tell you. That's part of my ADD. Pro daydreamer. Less so the hyperactivity. Like I don't think I ever had situations with outbursts or emotional regulation wasn't really tough for me.
So it's different than what this gentleman's referring to.
It's different in the sense, but I was doing really bad in chemistry in high school and I think in math class. And it was coming to the point where I had like a D or an F in one of those two or both, like getting into like early November, and I wouldn't have been able to play basketball the next semester, and that was not allowed.
That was a non-starter for you.
No, not allowed. So both from my aspect and my parents. So I mean, I had always kind of known I had ADD. My dad always talked about working in education, and my mom
how he gets
also
spotted,
working in education and just newspapers especially. That I probably had it, but I could kind of work through it. But yeah, when I got put on Adderall, it was actually Vyvanse was what I was first on. It made a huge difference.
Really?
Now there's like, it's some trial and error stuff, like, and you can work on it with your doctor, obviously, and don't take my advice, take theirs. But they started me on way too much. I was on 40 milligrams of Vyvanse.
So what were you behaving like then once you were taking that shit?
Zombie.
Really?
Yeah, that was the worst of it because I was not hungry. I wouldn't eat. So I would barely eat any lunch, and then I would have basketball practice after school, probably burn 2,000 calories, if not more, in a 2.5-hour basketball practice, and then barely eat. I lost like 15 pounds, and I didn't have 15 pounds to lose. But then we regulated it. Now I take 5 milligrams, which is obviously considerably less, but it's perfect for me where I don't feel like a zombie. I still can be creative. It took away a lot of my creativity. But, big time. But I could get shit done. And studying and paying attention in class, it helped in a major way. Immediately, I think I ended up with B's in both those classes. I had D's in November. So it definitely helps, but it's all trial and error and regulating it and making sure that the kid is comfortable with what they're taking and that their emotions feel good. Because physically, you might feel good and you might see results, but if emotionally you're doing poorly, which I was doing poorly emotionally at that time taking it, you gotta work on that. So just having an open communication, which it sounds like DJ Jazzy Jeff Albert Pujols has with his son.
Yeah, it sounds like he has great communication.
That is key. Having open communication, if the kid has to feel like they have to lie to you for what you want to hear as opposed to what you're truly feeling, that's not good. If you have true open communication, you can work through it for sure.
The thing and I would imagine those who are parents already know this, and those who aren't parents, it's just not something that's going to register, and that's totally fine because up until 2017, I've lived my life being in that category. I hate any time I read a parent beating himself or herself up over their child, whether it be behavior, I guess academic performance, whatever, athletic performance, take your pick, whatever. One of the things that through having children, but especially 2 children now, that to me is a truth, I don't know if it is, but I certainly believe it to be true, is it doesn't matter what you do. Essentially, children are like a hand of poker, and in the sense that you are dealt the cards.
Right.
They are dealt the cards, not you. Like it's like, they are dealt the cards. They are dealt what they are. Mm-hmm. And then you have, as a parent, to play that hand, and I realize this can come off crassly. It's not intended to be. It's an analogy. The best you can for what the situation is. So in the case of my older son, his behavior to date, and he's now 7.5 years old, matches up with a video I have of him like when he was 2 months old, to this day, and there hasn't really been a surprise. If his younger brother shared like his behavioral traits when he's 7.5, that my son at 7.5, I'd be totally thrown off.
Yeah.
I can clearly see the differences. And so oftentimes in sound stories, you've run the board for some of my sound stories, I've asked people when they talk about their kids, could you see the differences at a young age? And is that how it wound up playing out? And almost across the board, the answer is yes. Yeah. And it's one of those things that you don't know, or even you don't even think about probably until you're a parent. So now that I am, now that I have 2 children, and I hate to read this from this DJ Jazzy Jeff, Albert Pujols, if your child has, take your pick of whatever situation that they have, and then he's saying how he and his wife are beating themselves up over it, I hate, because it's just, you didn't do anything wrong.
Right.
You just didn't do anything wrong. It's the proverbial Matt Damon, Robin Williams. It's not your fault, but it truly isn't. Now, I guess the new thing to say is, oh, that's soft. I assure you, not that anybody fucking cares, nor do they really need to know. From a parenting standpoint, I certainly would not fall into the way I was raised by my mom would certainly be in the more loving category. My dad would be in the more hardcore category. I am in the more hardcore category, but it's never because I said so. I never ever want to say because I said so. That's my. And to this day, we're 7.5 years in. I'm on the streak, and I like to think I'll be able to continue it, because I always, even if the guy's 3 years old and he's hiding behind a chair with bunny ears on, and I'm having a conversation with this guy, but I want to give him my reasoning,
right.
And why do I need to go to bed? And it's like, and I give, even though I know you don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, because I never want to be because I said so. That's I hate dogma so much, and I hate not giving reasons, even if the person is 3 years old. And I don't want to set that standard that I'm not going to talk to them on an equal level. So even though I realize I only might have another year or two, or my 7-year-old is smaller than me, I'll get down on a knee so we're looking each other in the eyes. And so it's not a intimidation, and I win just by the fact that I'm older and in the rare spot that I actually am taller than the person I'm arguing with. But as far as the behavior, it's like you're a manager of a baseball team. You already know what the strengths are. You know what the weaknesses are. You know the things you got to work on. But are you teaching them right from wrong? And do you see progress? And if you don't, then from my standpoint, there needs to be material punishment. What is it that they love? Then it needs to be taken away if you're breaking one of the, for lack of a better term, mortal sins, one of these significant incidents that would be problematic. But as far as, if my son weren't doing well in school, if he weren't behaving well in school, or if he weren't good at sports, or whatever the case might be, I wouldn't go, what the fuck did we do? At the same time, if he were great in sports, or if he were great in school, or if he were great, and always behaving at peak level, I wouldn't go, well, look at us.
Yeah,
it's the hand. And especially, I think, that clarity, and I'd be curious from a parent standpoint, is there even more so once you have 2? Now, if both would be the same way, I'd go, okay, I don't think that would resonate. But, I look at me and my brother who's directly younger than me, and we're so different. And my parents didn't change anything, because if anything, my brother, who is the next one, Kevin, we're a lot more similar. Right. And my sister and I are probably similar personality-wise, but my brother Danny, just different personality. Great guy. Infinitely more likable. Not that that's a big accomplishment, but nonetheless, just a different disposition. And so and it's not like my parents tried something different. So it's the same kind of thing. It's like
hardwiring.
The kid's going to be as tall as they're going to be.
Right.
they're gonna love things that, when my son's down there watching Star Wars, I go, oh boy,
Yeah.
But I'm like, hey, if that's what he likes, then that's what he likes, If he's into guys, he's into guys, whatever the fuck
change
it is, So I'm just like, okay,
Yeah.
but I love him and I live for him and I love them both, and so once you see those things, then there is that acceptance, which I guess probably sounds incredibly obvious, but I just if I read, as I am here, where somebody was talking about how he and his wife were beating themselves up over the way their child was behaving, I hate to read that, because when our older son would be going batshit, and then the younger one is like chill as hell, I know we didn't do anything different. So I don't go, well, look at us, we figured this one out. Or when the older one gets great grades, I don't go, see, it's just the way that it is.
Right.
And if one is great in sports and one isn't as good, whatever. I just, and it's a weird deal. And I don't know if this is commonplace with parents. In other words, I know I've never even used the poker analogy, like the card analogy. There are all these different combinations of hands, not just you can have 8-7, well, you can have 8 of spades and 7 of clubs.
Right. There's no how-to manual.
But you still teach right from wrong, ideally a work ethic, something that I make reference to when we talk about Mark Hanna, one of our sponsors on this podcast, evergreenstl.com. One of the things, and I don't blame my parents for this, it's just because if anything, you would expect you learn it from school, but I don't think school does a great job teaching it, and that is financial management. And so I am so committed, if I'm lucky enough to be around when they're in their teens and 20s, that I can, get them on the right track from the get-go of managing money so they don't repeat the same stupid shit that I did. But as far as all of these behavioral traits, if parents beat themselves up, or if, on the other hand, I guess, if parents are like, "Look at me," I don't know if that
Kids
goes
on
on.
the honor roll type.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, boy.
Any bumper sticker, really. If you're out there and you have a bumper sticker, I'm talking to you, the people who are by camera. Right
Jackson has just attacked everybody who has a bumper sticker. I have a unifying message of parenting. Jackson makes a heel turn like John Cena.
Yeah, if it's like one of those like metal things that you can detach, Jesus. Detach, okay. If you're like actually putting a sticker on there, it seems pretty silly to me. Just my take of any kind.
Well, I mean, I think it kind of goes back to the social media thing.
Right.
I think they're kind of cut from the same cloth.
Right. Yeah, I would agree there. Yeah. In that one's maybe even more egregious because it's like motorists who you'll never see. Like these like when I see people on the road, like I don't think of that. Oh, that's a person. I think, oh, that's a car. I don't know. This is getting existential.
Doug always says the safest thing you can do is talk about Hoosiers, as in the St. Louis version, not fight Kurt Signetti.
Right.
Because nobody really thinks they are one, and it's general enough.
Yeah. Right.
So if you're talking about social media, when you're talking about it, it's not hitting close to home. Mm-hmm. You start specifying on a bumper sticker, you either have one or you don't.
Right. Yeah. It's very binary.
And so, whereas I feel more comfortable with espousing the social media opinions that I have, and I've been very vocal about it for a while, the bumper sticker one, and also it's kind of like when Doug goes into the block him, and then I'll go, well, here's the thing, if you block somebody, there's a good chance the behavior that they displayed was enough for you to block them, that there is a good chance that if they're blocked, it could trigger them. And his is, I don't care, block him. Yeah. And I understand that. I think if you follow the breadcrumbs on the mindset of the bumper sticker,
right,
and the brag on the bumper sticker, like the 26.2.
Oh my God. I forgot that era of TMA, the 26.2. I feel like it was always connected to a Joy FM bumper sticker as well.
I mean, now I'll say this. I think and I really do, I don't say this to placate the TMA audience, because if anything, the TMA audience is vocally outspoken against us, which is, that's a master's thesis waiting to happen. But I don't think there are a lot of people who listen to TMA who would have number one Family Feud, a Joy FM sticker, the Venn diagram.
Yeah, it's two circles.
Yeah. maybe a handful, and by a handful, I mean a sliver of the 26.2.
Yeah. They like Doug's hockeyisms.
A sliver of the my child is on an honor roll.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, and I say, I mean this, and I have no idea. I mean, deep down, I hope my son doesn't go to St. Louis U High, not because I don't love St. Louis U High, but because that means that there's a good chance it means we will have been able to relocate to South Florida. That's my honest reason, I hope. Well,
Maybe SLU High can move to South Florida as well.
It should.
There we go.
They certainly could use some schools. There is a shortage in that area.
Right.
But, whatever, that's 7 years away. If that were to happen, under no and I know my wife will, that there would not be, I would never put, because I feel like it is a brag.
Yeah. It's a little junior bill.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I understand you're proud if your son could get in there or whatever the case might be, but I also kind of think it's a brag,
Like, does putting the sticker on there increase your pride is the kind of the question. I
just don't know when I see those. I see this the social media. I'm not talking to anybody, but I go into this and I'm probably talking to some of my peers even, and it's just, that's where I am. But keep in mind, at the outset of the podcast, I made the observation that 4 years ago, I'm driving around Jupiter, playing golf with Michael Wellington on Valentine's Day. That's who I spent Valentine's Day with, Michael Wellington.
It's
just wonderful.
Main person I'd want to spend Valentine's with. Hubba. Amen.
And it's like, here's another video. Like, as if anybody gave a fuck,
Right.
I mean, I think people were kind of like, what are you idiots doing so close to alligators? But then once you're around alligators so much, you're kind of
really
like,
they're wild with that
you
shit.
don't think anything of it. But other than that, and I'm like, I would never.
Right.
I wouldn't do that now. I would not do that now. So I might have like this ridiculous overcorrection. Like, let me put it this way. I don't think people have the same reaction to the high school stickers that I do.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Certain high schools.
Yeah.
Yet,
I mean,
not all of them would fall into that category of being a brag.
Right. Agreed. Yeah. I think if you're like cutting a check, that's where it kind of starts.
Yeah.
But there's other. I mean, if you went to my high school and had it,
would that be in the brag category?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of anyone.
I was about to say, I don't think I see Ladue, Horton, Watkins stickers.
Having the parking permit for the lots, the real. That's what you really.
Oh,
want.
that's what you want to show?
No, not really. No, I don't know.
Let's see. I guess I'll see a handful.
See some JBSs.
I was about to say, of Burrows.
Yeah.
Handful of MICDSs.
Yeah, I can actually picture the MICDS one right now.
It's a large, thick lettering, a handful of villas.
Yeah. You seldom see a Webster Groves sticker on the back of people's car. Fine high school, shout out to the Statesman.
Yeah.
But you don't see it often.
So then, and then there's some cars, and I feel like these are more prominent in the Kirkwood-Webster area, where it's like a big old school SUV with just stickers of high schools and colleges.
OBX.
Outer Banks? Is that what that stands for?
My mom's van growing up had an OBX sticker on it. Yeah.
There you go.
Oh, there's a lot of Hoosier in OBX, though. Don't worry.
Oh, is that right?
I've said it before. I like a little Hoosier in my vacation.
This was not on TMA and wasn't on 101. That's too fat to kayak. I'm trying to follow this. Alexander Colton. Back when Tim was the GM. I've never been a GM in my life.
You were well on your way to being a GM of Pietro's.
You think so?
I think, yeah.
I was a busboy, and you think I was on the verge of being the general manager? Maybe after the 15-year-old with a worker's permit.
Maybe after the suit.
Yeah, you're right. Could have owned the thing.
Yeah, the McKernans.
We changed it for Pietro's to McKernan's. Back when Tim was the GM, okay, God bless, or a similar decision-making role, there was an afternoon show that alleged Albert Pujols took steroids. Lawyers involved. Tim obviously has the full story. That was quite a moment. It was 12 years ago. The Jack Clark, Albert Pujols moment. And yes, but I like I said, I feel like it's like when Iggy talks about writing a book. I talk about that. I would love to tell that whole story. And I think the thing is, I don't even know if people believe. I mean, there isn't like a bunch of sides. There's just so many details that weren't, because I couldn't talk. We have an insurance policy. We knew we didn't do anything wrong, but the way it was reported, somehow we got tied into it. Anyway, I don't know why that's being talked about, though. I got to go scrolling up on the YouTube chat.
Well, I want to give a shout out to a new name that I see in the YouTube chat, Tamar's Brother Master. I'm a big fan.
Which is like Harrison's brother Master.
Yeah.
No relation.
No, I hope. But yeah, Tamar's Brother Master is a good name.
Tamar's Brother Master says, I'm proud of my DeBerg alum sticker.
Hell yeah. Fear the Cavalier, baby.
DB proud.
So many of my friends from DB, they're all great people.
Jack B is sweeping on Dwake. No way I could ever live in Florida, California. Maybe that's from us, St. Charles.
A surprising message, if just being honest. Just on stereotypes alone. But I agree with you. I'm with you. I didn't think I'd be locked up.
Yeah, that's great. I'm not inviting you, so, you know.
That's a shame.
I know most people do not want to live in Palm Beach County. Let's see. Hi, guys. Didn't realize you were doing this today. That's from Brandon Baker. Hi.
What's up, BB?
I got a call at 1:15, so I will have to land the plane here shortly. Jackson and I did another podcast, and that'll be debuting, I guess, this afternoon. I think it'll be on the TMA YouTube.
Is it this afternoon?
Show. Yeah.
Okay.
I believe so.
Okay, cool.
On the NCAA tournament. I love Private Citizen Pete. That's from Tamar's Brother Master.
Hell yeah. Great guy.
Why is that coming up? Why are these things coming up in the YouTube chat? I feel like I'm blocked from some of the comments and I can't follow everything.
Private Citizen Pete is DB Proud.
Okay. And that's from
Tamar's
Brother Master.
Who said
he's DB Proud and Private Citizen Pete. Now it's all making sense.
That's right. Full circle, baby. Full circle.
The problem with Florida is that it's Florida, kind of like how Missouri is Missouri. Okay.
I'm not, now I'm off. Now we're not locked up. I like Florida.
Well, that's from us, St. Charles.
Yeah.
That's not from Tamar's Brother Master. That's your guy.
I was in lockstep, but now, like if I had my druthers,
Florida is like 5 different states.
Yeah, that is exactly right.
But I mean, you have to have been to them all to know it, and I have a feeling this might be more Panhandle we're talking to here.
Right.
Tim, it's being discussed because I asked a question in here. Well, Alexander, what is your question? And I'll be happy to answer it directly. What is your question? I will be happy to tend to your query. That's why it's called Questions from the Audience, brought to you by James Carlton of the Carlton State Farm Insurance Agency, brought to you by Mark Hanna of Evergreen Wealth Strategies, and brought to you by Design Air Heating and Cooling. Email the day. It was my previous message before these.
What are we speaking in code here for? Spit it out.
This Jackson, he's not sweeping on Dwake. He's locked in, and he's a banny rooster. I'm happy to answer any questions. That's why the podcast is literally called Questions from the Audience.
Yeah.
And then when I said, what is the question? And then the response was, it was my previous message before these. And I don't have a message. Please, I have to know the 5 states. Jackson?
Well, Panhandle is a little bit different in Florida.
Panhandle's different than Northeast.
Yeah, I would say.
Gulf Coast is different than Atlantic Coast, and Central Florida is different than any of them.
And I kind of think Miami is a state into itself.
I would agree.
Yeah, so it is very different.
Palm Beach County is different than Broward County, and Broward County is different than Miami-Dade, without question. And those are all different than, Lee?
Yeah,
Collier, and those are on the, and then you go up the coast, and it's a totally different
world. Daytona is way different than Jupiter.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I said, I had a buddy who lives down there, and he goes, hey, I know this sounds crazy. He goes, but you've been kind of talking up, this was like 5 years ago. He goes, you need to stop telling everybody about it. I go, you think my stupid shit little podcast is affecting like the money coming in from New York and Connecticut that's moving down there?
St. Louis people are moving in droves. They can't keep Cardinal hats in the store.
And he's brilliant. Might be the smartest guy I know. I said, I'm flattered. He goes, just, let him stick to Destin. I said, trust me, I'm not moving money. It's a lot to type, damn it. His question was, what prompted the Pujols response? What's the Pujols response? Okay, here we go. Tim in the fast lane a few weeks ago, they were talking cards and making assumptions. Stalter told CD to be careful, and if he wants to know why, asked him the Pujols situation. Yeah, I didn't say anything. It was Jack Clark. And then that led to my understanding on it was Deidre Pujols, but Albert, and I have, like I said, I don't know. All I know is I got lumped into it, and And it was, I mean, I still have the emails saved. It's kind of the same way that people save like things that motivate them. That's still the kind of thing. And that is probably why, might actually be why I am so anti-social media. Because it was just a bunch of burners hating. And I'm like, well, you have no idea. You're completely, but you don't know. And then I can't talk. And it's like, why are you like this mad about something?
Yeah, you call it the pitchfork mafia.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and then that kind of became like a term now that's like cliche and people don't even use now. But because that's what it was.
Yeah. Keyboard warrior, another term that's kind of been phased out.
So that was absolutely a brutal time. The thing about that time was what the public had been, and I don't blame the public, because how can you blame people for believing what they read?
Right.
And until you're in a spot where you are the one being written about and you're going, wow, this is not true, your disposition, even now, even when it's kind of in vogue to say I don't believe the media, is to believe what you read. So I understand that, because up until that point, that was the case. Right. But then I'm going, wow, this is not accurate. I mean, things in there about our company's finances. I mean, just like things that if you, and anybody who ran a business would know it wasn't accurate. But if you didn't know, so I don't know, something like we had $15,000 in the bank account or something like that, and that's actually being put in the newspaper.
And they're privy to such information.
And I'm going, wait. and if you just, I mean, just for this, like let's just do this real quickly, because this is a very basic math exercise. But then it just got put in there. I'm going, I mean, I really, I think it was like we only have $15,000. Like, I'm being quoted secondhand. We only have $15,000 in the account. If somebody is making, as an individual, $144,000 a year, what are they making per month?
12,000.
That's
yes.
correct. I was getting a little concerned.
3-digit math, dude. Like, you can't be messing with me. And not to mention, I might not have heard the first part of it.
You were thinking about Ellery back.
Yeah.
I don't blame you on that.
Yeah.
So if we had, and I would imagine we had to have some people making in that range,
sure.
And we only had $15,000, and then after that we were just turn off the lights. That's $12,000 in the month, much less the other like 20 people are, and it just gets printed.
Yeah, it's gonna be a big month.
Yeah, I hope we have a big revenue influx. Hope Ryan Kelly's looking to spend. Yeah. I mean, you just go. And I just remember reading it, but it's like, I got Albert Poole suing me over here, even though I got nothing to fucking do with this thing. And then I got this nonsense over here that's just like so dumb. But most people, and you can't fault people for this, never manage a payroll.
Right.
You know? Right. So I understand it. And either way, I had to tend to like the giant over here. I remember one of my buddies who was involved, that he goes, dude, he goes, you got this over here with a guy who everybody knows is not, on the up and up, for lack of a better term. And then you got Albert Pools over here. I go, to even spend a second on this, I go, but it's just made up. He goes, who fucking cares? And I go, well, they're not talking about you. He goes, but who fucking cares? And so I guess once you go through one of those things, you're kind of like, all right, people are just gonna say shit, and you can't do anything about it. And you kind of get to being at peace with it once you live it. Yeah. But it's not like a fun thing I would advocate for people, but once you live it. Yeah. So anyway, I guess that's what Anthony Stalter was talking about. I don't know, because I didn't hear the segment, but I want to answer the question. Let's see. When is the Spread Zone? Is that going to be live? We just recorded it, and it should be up on our YouTube channel. It'll definitely be on the podcast feed. Let's see. That Jack Clark show was entertaining for the week that it aired. So was the Jimmy Edmonds show that he did with Tim. I can't speak to the Jack Clark show, but I can speak to the Edmonds show. And I'll tell you this. You want to talk about like sneaker reasons this show is still around, even though it was started in 2004. It's because 920 would have gone out of business, not because we had $15,000 in the account, but we just were operating at a deficit because I hired a bunch of people who didn't, nothing against them. Their shows just didn't bring in much advertising revenue. And that's me doing it, making a mistake, not their faults. But the show that I did with Edmonds was the money that allowed the thing to continue. That was so critical. I don't know what happens if that doesn't happen. That was critical. Right. That truly was, because that started, I think Jim and I did a show when the Cardinals were playing the Dodgers in 2013, just kind of like randomly for the fuck of it from his restaurant. And then in 2014, he's like, yeah, I'll do a show. I go, you want to do a show? And I think we followed TMA initially, or maybe like an hour later, or maybe Cusimano was after us, and then me and Jim did 12 to 2.
Yeah.
And then it was so popular because of John Seymour, really. Seymour was able to get these incredible guests because of Edmonds.
Right.
But John also was a world-class guest booker, Sea Monster. And then we're like, well, fuck, we got to move this into Afternoon Drive. And it brought in a bunch of money. So then we were making money on TMA in the mornings, and we were making money on the Edmonds McKernan show in the afternoons. And that allowed us to go and then eventually profit. And that's truly, that was like the thing. As far as like little sneaker moments, that was the thing. Anyway, I got to go. I got this call at 1:15 that I'm late for, which is terrible. For Jackson Burkett, I'm Tim McKernan. This has been the Tim McKernan Show podcast. Thanks to Mark Hanna, evergreenstl.com, James Carlton, carltoninsurance.net, and Seth Goldcamp online at Design Air Heating and Cooling, designairservice.com.